This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Mark Magnuson.
Hello and welcome into Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Mark Magnuson. Today is Monday, October 7th, 2024, and we're so glad you can join us for today's show. In today's episode, I will be joined by Lance Sommer. Lance is a dairy and row crop farmer from eastern Indiana. Had the chance to interview Lance at the recent Syngenta Media Summit. That is coming up in today's show, but first, a word from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soybean Checkoff. You are watching Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
On today's episode of Ag Matters PM, I'm joined by Lance Sommer. He is a dairy and row crop farmer from eastern Indiana. Had the chance to interview Lance last week at the Syngenta Media Summit in Greensboro, North Carolina, and we discussed the innovation in crop protection products, how far they have come, and those things that Lance thinks about year to year as he is going into a growing season and putting together his crop protection plan.
Mark Magnuson for the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and I'm joined today by Lance Sommer. We are at the Syngenta Media Summit in Greensboro, North Carolina, and Lance joining me today. He is a farmer from Indiana. And Lance, could you tell us a little bit about your operation, please?
Yeah, I'm from Bern, Indiana. It's northeastern Indiana, so close to the Ohio line. On our farm, we milk about 300 Holstein cows, a couple thousand acre grain farm, and try to use technology while doing that.
So Lance, here today, you're kind of giving the perspective of the farmer, obviously. Why was this something that you felt like would be a good opportunity for you here today?
You know, Syngenta reached out to me, and we have been using their products for 10 plus years. So it was kind of a good match that I could talk about their products and what I liked about them. And they invited me to come, and here I am.
And kind of seeing behind the curtain here today at the Syngenta headquarters in Greensboro, you know, we see the research and development that goes into a product, the active ingredients from the products. What kind of today, I guess, is there anything that's kind of stood out to you as something you've learned?
The biggest thing I've learned is how much money they're putting towards the growth of this company and new products. I mean, we all like to have the best products out there, but knowing that they're putting that much money investing in these new products made me feel really good about the future of Syngenta.
And Lance, you were in part of a panel discussion. It was specifically about fungicide and kind of thinking about the past and how fungicide wasn't necessarily used as much here until recent years, and then thinking about the future of fungicides. And could you kind of tell your experience with using fungicide on your operation and kind of how it's evolved, please?
Yeah, maybe 10, 12 years ago, we were not using fungicide on corn. We've been using fungicide on beans for closer to 20 years. But we saw the need for keeping the corn plant disease-free, keeping it alive longer to mitigate stress. So fungicide on our farm's a huge part of it now. Usually just one pass on beans, and then lately, last 3 or 4 years, we've been going to a dual planned application of fungicide of Miravis Neo on our corn to keep the plant healthy, to keep it alive longer, and to really get those kernels the size that we need it to get.
And something that was an interesting discussion point during the panel, I thought, was the fact that, yes, we are dealing with tougher economic times in the ag economy right now, but we've been talking about it all year long this year that cutting corners is not the way to go about it necessarily. What, from your perspective as a farmer, you're looking at something and saying, hey, do I need to do everything on my checklist this year? Can I save some money somewhere? But that's not necessarily the case, maybe, where it's a good idea for the long term.
Yeah, I think in today's environment, we definitely have to sharpen our pencils and see what's the most beneficial products for us to use. And on our farm, it's not cutting out the fungicide passes. We look at fungicide as an insurance policy for us, that we can harvest the crop and get it inside the grain bin. So it needs to be standing until the day we shell the corn or cut the beans. So again, we're just looking at the fungicide pass as the insurance policy for us to be able to sell that grain.
And then we've, of course, been talking a lot about Storin, the new herbicide from Syngenta. Did you get a chance to use it this growing season, and any impressions on Storin and kind of what it's capable of?
Yeah, we've actually involved with Syngenta. We were a big Halix GT post application. Then 3 or 4 years ago, we went to the Acuron, had great success with that. And now we are with Storin. This was our first year and saw great results. Very clean fields, probably the cleanest fields we've ever had.
And then Lance, as you mentioned here, we'll wrap up here today. Also a dairy farmer. Who's looking after your cows while you're here? You got to get back quick?
Hey, I do have to get back quick. We want to keep going with harvest, but yeah, I have to give credit to my family, mom and dad, and brother-in-law that's a partner with me, and his son, my nephew, came back to the farm from Purdue, and this wouldn't be possible without them.
Lance Sommer of Sommer Farms. Lance, is there anything else you'd like to let our viewers, our listeners, a couple states over in another I-state in the state of Iowa about maybe something that you learned here today that you thought was interesting, or just any experiences that you've had this growing season?
No, I don't think there's anything else to add. I think some of the interviews today were very interesting, and just learning how Syngenta is going to be here for the long haul and helping us on the farm and to help us grow the crop we need for our economy to keep going.
Lance Sommer of Sommer Farms, thanks so much for the time. Appreciate it. Have a great trip home.
Thank you.
Thank you to Lance Sommer for taking the time to join today's episode of Ag Matters PM. And it is time now for our closing market coverage. We are joined now by Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net. At the end of the trading day here on Monday, we are joined now by Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net. Robin, how did we trade today in the grains?
Well, we had corn and wheat showed some positive movement today, slightly, nothing real earth-shattering like we saw some of the movement last week. Soybeans were a little bit lower. Soybean meal probably a little bit more lower than, percentage basis, but relative to the market. So really not a lot that was really, generated any real trading activity to any large degree. Now, there was a private ship in Ukraine that was hit by a missile. That didn't really rattle the market a whole lot. It just puts a little bit of caution in the market again and resurrects the conflict that's over there. Russia's expected to come out sometime this week and probably reduce some of their production on wheat based on weather situation. But again, that didn't have a whole lot of impact on the market. Export inspections this morning, we had corn at 36.742 million bushels. Last week it was 45.255. So we were a little bit lower on that. Soybeans were really good comparison to the previous week. We had 52.594 million bushels. Last week, we had half of that, 25.091. So really saw a surge. And actually, so far for the 5 weeks of this year, we've seen growth in soybean exports each one of those weeks, or inspections, I should say. Wheat was at 13.355 million bushels. Last week, it was 20.242. Now, commitment to traders was the big thing that people were anticipating. We've been seeing fund short covering or managed money short covering in those now on the last week that the commitment traders reports up to Tuesday of last week. Managed money, they bought 68,266 contracts, futures contracts in corn. So that brings them now to a short of 72,085. That's the lowest short positions they've had since August of 2023. Soybeans, they bought 44,236 contracts, so now they're short 31,781 contracts. That's the smallest that we've seen so far since May. So we knew that short covering was taking place. Maybe wasn't quite as much as some had anticipated, but nevertheless, they did short cover. Now, we don't think that they'll go to a net long position at this point in time. They covered their short positions to that far. With more harvesting progressing, we'll probably see a little bit more pressure coming back on that market as things fill up. And we're hearing things are filling up and even some piling already outside. Now, corn harvest for this week is expected at on the report today at 34% versus 21% last week. So we've got quite a bit of harvesting to go yet. Soybeans at 45% versus 26% last week. And winter wheat plantings at 55% versus 39% last week. And really, those are all pretty much in line with where they were a year ago. Now, the other issue that we are dealing with is we are getting closer to fall now, or we're in fall actually, but getting closer to colder weather. Now, there was a frost advisory in northern Wisconsin, northern Minnesota. So some of those crops may be impacted because of the lateness of planting we saw in some areas, but by and large, probably not going to affect it a whole lot. And those were more in the northern regions. So that's not a market mover. Those areas aren't going to really impact the whole market as a whole. So we did see just that news coming in the market, but just, minor movement today overall as far as volatility was concerned.
On the other side of the ag marketplace, how did the cattle and hogs trade?
The cattle were higher last week as far as cash was concerned. Southern cattle were up $1, northern dressed cattle up $2. So that provided some push last week in the markets. Now, we did see a little bit struggling on cattle earlier today, but they did come back. The noon or midday update showed box beef prices. They saw the choice up $2.79 and select up $2.72. Now, there were only 18% of the cattle purchased last week for deferred delivery. So that's a pretty light level. And that's what we've seen the last 2 weeks, and we've seen higher cash. So that's going to give the feedlots a little more, optimism and the desire to hold out again this week, like they did the last 2 weeks, and it resulted in higher cash. So I think we're going to be seeing that, as we move through the rest of this week. On the hog side of it, we did see some gains again in hogs. The Friday we saw higher cash, which was unusual. Generally on Friday we don't. Now today we didn't see a cash market trade because the confidentiality of the packers, and there was some light activity, so they didn't report anything. So we don't know exactly where that's at, but if it follows the pattern of the last couple of weeks, we will see some higher cash today because packers usually want to come in early and pick up supplies. Now, the midday report on cutouts was higher, about 272 higher. And that's what we need to see in this market to keep us pushing higher. We need to see consistency in the pork cutouts in order to provide further support to the market. But one thing we did see is December contract futures broke above resistance. Now it opens up the door for maybe another $1.70 higher to the next resistance level. And then from their contract high, or near contract highs, is not far away. The February contract did trade above the support, or I should say resistance, and a close at that level again will probably be positive for the technical traders. The trend is your friend, and they'll probably continue to buy into that. And the outlook looks good, at least at this point in time.
He is Robin Schmahl with agmarket.net, our guest here on Monday. Robin, what's the best way for our viewers to get in touch for more marketing information?
They can call me directly at 877-256-3253, or they can go to our website, agmarket.net, call the number that's on there, send an email, and somebody will respond.
Thank you for the time, Robin. We appreciate it, and have a great rest of your week.
All right. Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you to Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net. Robin was busy last week at the World Dairy Expo. Great to have him back on the show this week. It's time now to take a look at those closing numbers. We can find those anytime on our website under the Markets tab at iowaagnet.com.
December corn closes up 1 1/4 at $4.26 even. November soybeans down 3 3/4 at $10.34 even. December soybean meal down $6.50 at $3.24. December soybean oil up 60 cents at $44.57. Chicago wheat up 2 3/4 at $5.92.5. Minneapolis wheat up 4 even at $6.42.5. Kansas City hard red wheat up 5 1/4 at $6.03 1/4. December oats up 7 1/2 at $3.95 3/4. On the Merc, October live cattle up 47 cents at $187.47. October feeder cattle down 77 cents at $248.85. December lean hogs up 67 cents at $76.82. December pork cutout up 67 cents at $90.90. Class 3 milk down a penny at $22.55.
That wraps up our closing market coverage here for Monday, and that brings us to the end of today's episode. You can find all of our content on our website at iowaagnet.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click on the notification icon as well. The bell icon will let you know whenever we have any new videos available for you. You can also follow us on social media at TikTok, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn. And you can listen to our morning, midday, and closing market podcast, which are found on Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and Podbean. Also, don't forget to listen to our daily Iowa Ag Matters podcast. From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, I'm Mark Magnuson. For Riley Smith, Dustin Huffman, and Andy Peterson, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.